Good evening, everybody. My name is Kate Milliken. I am the founder of MyCounterpane, and tonight I am here with Randy Patrick, who is the founder of Chat MS, along with a bevy of awesome MSers. Yes, applause all around. And we're here for our second MyCounterpane gathering. And the subject tonight that we're kicking around is the whole idea of you, yourself, and you. And when we came up with that title, or when I came up with it, I really thought about the whole concept of when living with MS and having a diagnosis with MS, that as a result of having this curveball thrown into all of our lives, that there's a moment where our personality in some way has to split, because you're living your life and you're getting your diagnosis and figuring out how to work with it. And at the same time, something is making you make choices to move forward. So I kind of wanted to drop in with all of you amazing people here, all living with MS, to really talk about that. And I wanted to start with the diagnosis. I know we all have probably very dramatic diagnosis stories, but I want to throw out the idea of talking about diagnosis. When you go back to that series of days or hours or weeks, the moment when you were diagnosed, when there was a real feeling where you had the diagnosis in your body and your mind, and when you kind of looked at it from afar and really started realizing what was going on. Can anyone kind of articulate that moment?
Yeah, I guess I can start with that. My first neurologist was, probably not the greatest neurologist in the world. So it kind of went from, for me, which was pretty much just sensory symptoms, pretty much numbness from like the chest down. And it went from all of a sudden being, oh, I'm making it all up, it's just anxiety, to all of a sudden, oh, it's MS. And you're like, what are you talking about? You just told me there was nothing wrong. So kind of from that point, there was a lot of confusion. And then up to my most recent neurologist, who basically confirmed with a second opinion. Like, there was a lot of research involved, so it wasn't as stressful, I guess, when I got the official diagnosis. But it was more confusion at first for me, with the first guy going from, oh, you're fine, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's this, and not answering any questions and things like that. It was just a nightmare.
Well, and Randy, right after just delving into your story, the fact that it was only 2 lesions, one brain, one in your cervical,
yeah,
that gave the doctors enough to go by to get you diagnosed. That's interesting.
Yeah, the spinal tap and all that stuff came back perfectly fine, but so it was interesting.
Anyone else want to talk about that moment?
Sure. I have I guess just from thinking about, not the first day I was diagnosed, but I saw 3 doctors, I think, to diagnose the actual MS, and first opinion, second opinion, third opinion. And it was a third opinion when it's at the Mayo Clinic. And that was probably the one that sunk in the most. Is the entire time, it happened very quickly. I was diagnosed in May of 2005, and then I think I saw John Noseworthy at Mayo, I think later in June or July even. And it wasn't until then I was keeping it together, and my father was saying, you can handle this, you can handle this. And but if you're disorganized, you take care of it. And I said, okay, I can do this. And I didn't cry. I never really cried. And the doctor took me into another room, and he said, like, what is your problem? You're 24 years old. You're keeping this together. Like, you've been doing this for years. Like, do you realize how bad this is?
Wow.
He said, this is not good news. He said, this is not good news. And that's the first time I ever cried. Was when, I'm sorry, that's when he said, this is not good news. And that was it. That was like the watershed moment for me. Was when somebody finally said, what are you doing? Why are you keeping it together? You're not okay. And for that second, I thought, okay, but I can still do this. And he said, no, you can still do this, but you have to recognize that this is bad news. And you have to actually let that sink in. And I never had let it sink in before, which I think was the problem. And
Brooke, in retrospect, do you feel like that was helpful now?
Very, very helpful. And I wish that my first doctor had said that to me. The second guy, actually, I see now, he's terrific. But the Mayo Clinic guy, he's actually now the president and CEO of the Mayo Clinic, so he's unavailable for clinic. But I really felt that he cut through the BS, just said, like, this, it is what it is. It sucks. this is where we are not close to a cure. I do believe in your lifetime we'll have one, but this is bad news. You need to accept this, and you need to let it sink in, because I was just kind of skimming the surface, just kind of popping along, and it really didn't make me think about even getting on a medication or doing anything proactively about it. So telling me it was bad news was good.
Yeah, although at that moment, I'm sure that felt like such on the low end of the emotional spectrum. Kelly or Kelly, I'll throw it to either one of you guys. Where do you think you guys fell on the emotional spectrum in that real moment of truth?
Well, you know what? I'll just take it, Kelly, first. I was diagnosed a little differently than everybody else. I was diagnosed when I was 17. As a teenager, softball player most of my life, not being able to hit or swing the bat or catch a ball, getting hit in the face with it. We thought at first it was just I needed new glasses. Parents said, "Oh, come on, you're fine, new glasses." We went to the eye doctor, then had to be rushed to the neurologist, and right away he started doing testing. They got me in for an MRI right away, and he said, "You have MS." Well, in 1988, no one was talking about MS. I had no idea what it was. I heard a lot of whispering on the phone with my parents, talking about it. But my doctor did tell me, gave me a bunch of pamphlets. We couldn't go online or anything at that time. Bunch of pamphlets. He said, "Don't look at these right now, because you'll start to manifest some of these symptoms that you might read about," which of course I had no idea what he was talking about. And he did tell me we would have a cure in 5 years. That was in 1988. But as the years have gone on, I've kind of kept that in the back of my head. Okay, a cure is coming, even though my body wasn't responding. And as I got older and my symptoms got worse, I was really hit in the face with it. This is a serious thing that we're, being run into. And on top of that, my twin sister was diagnosed a year after with MS as well. And so we kind of went back and forth on the roller coaster of MS for all those years. And like I said, we didn't have that information available to us at all times. So that was a blessing and a curse, because I couldn't really reach out to other people to find out information, proactive or not, so that was a little bit daunting. And we kind of just went through, and the doctor just said, well, here's this med and that med. We'll just take it day by day. That was kind of where we were.
Wow. Kelly?
Yeah, I was coincidentally diagnosed at 17 also.
Wow.
I also
the same name.
You guys the twin sisters?
Poor thing.
But it only took 3 months between first getting sick and then between the diagnosis. I got sick like September of 2003. I was diagnosed December of 2003. And to be honest, those first 3 years or so are kind of like a blur for me. I don't really, not that I don't remember, because I do remember, because it was like 3 years of hell, but it was just in and out of hospitals, in and out of doctor's office. It was just, it wasn't fun.
So you guys, the Kellys being so young, I feel like on some level that kind of takes you out of my next question, and maybe I can pose this to Phil and Mary, is, I think that when you kind of go through this denial period for some, you're seeking information, and then at some point you decide that you are actually going to make a decision of how you're going to treat your MS and what you're going to actually do. So can you guys talk about what it was that made you move forward and how you decided to do so?
When I was diagnosed at age like 40, 41, I didn't really know, because my neurologist didn't really say too much, oh, you'll be fine though. Telling me yeah, it's okay, you have it, but no big deal. I was like, so I'm thinking, because I knew nothing about it really. I was like, all right, I guess it's something. I know it's no cure. So I was a little nervous and stuff. And if my wife wasn't there, forget about it. I probably wouldn't have went to the doctor. But that was okay to deal with. But then when I went to the neurologist, and she gave me she was telling me, she's like, oh, you're primary progressive. So I was like, okay, what does that mean? I knew nothing about it. And she's like, oh, but 10% of people that have MS have primary. I'm like, oh, great. So I won the lottery, So I got this disease that is it's nonstop. It's nonstop, constant pain that I didn't even know about. Because I see all these people that have the remittance, and they'd be totally fine climbing mountains, and then 1 month they'll be out of commission for everything. So I'm like, I don't know which one I'd rather have, be totally disabled forever, right away, or be really good 1 month and really crappy the next month. So it's both of them kind of suck. But ever since I went to that doctor, and orthopedist made me go see another doctor by calling me and telling me, you don't have to come in, just call this doctor. And I was like, why don't you tell me what you're trying to tell me? He basically was trying to get himself off the hook by saying that, yeah, you have lesions and stuff, you have MS. So I was able with that. This other doctor gave me his Copaxone. Even though I'm primary, she's like, it might not work. But for the first year, it kind of did, because, well, I guess it did. The first year I was when I went for MRIs, it was the same as before. So that's good. But then when I went for the recent ones, I found out that I had 2 or 3 other lesions and stuff. In a way, I was really sad, but in a way, I was really happy, because that put me right in the head of the class to be approved for the new Ocuvus
and also
infusion.
knowledge is power, right? On some
Yeah, definitely. So I was really happy about that, because then I got the Ocuvus card. So I got a credit card now saying I can go for this immunization or whatever it's called. So I'm like, all right, so I'm going to go through that. So I'm going through all this BS, getting ready for that. So got to take the bad with the good and vice versa. So see what happens there. So
Mary,
okay.
Let me ask you a next question that I would ask to everyone, but we'll start with you. So, as Phil spoke about, always feeling pain and always feeling bad, and all of us having our different moments, how do you find clarity with that constant interruption and, challenges that you're dealing with?
I think that my story contains quite a plethora of other entities. I had other health issues even before the MS diagnosis. The diagnosis of MS came in 2001, and I think the good thing that came from that is it made me realize I was in a really crappy marriage, and I bet I didn't know how to get out of it. I had a husband who literally was embarrassed by the way my health had affected his lifestyle. And so therefore, with me, I had the symptomatic things going on. I kept trying to work. But eventually I knew that it was going away, and I totally lost my own identity. Okay, a bad marriage, can't work. What the hell am I going to do? Can't move. I don't want to move back in with my mother. So long story short, I think when I was diagnosed, it for me, it also took 3 opinions, and it was a neurosurgeon who gave me the 3rd opinion, but he was more concerned about my cervical stenosis. So I've got a plate and screws in my neck. But he just kind of haphazardly goes, oh, well, first of all, Mary, your neck is really crappy, but you got MS. End of story. Look at this spot, look at that spot, look at that spot. And so I was blank. Just even thinking back today, no tears. I was kind of, okay, all right. And I stayed that way. I don't think even once I have shed a tear, because I think I focus so much on what do I do with this? And, other people here who were diagnosed before Facebook groups were around, and even books. I don't know, my first books were by Rosalind Kalb. Judith Lynn Nichols wrote some really good social media type books where a bunch of women, it was mainly women driven. Sorry, Phil and Randy, but anyway, they were great books. But those were my only go-tos. And it was like showing my ex-husband at the time, see, I'm not crazy. See, sex can't happen. See, this does happen. See, this is why I can't get up and go pay the newspaper man. So long story short, I really think that I stayed in a very strange void, blur, numb, until I woke up one day and I knew that I needed to file for divorce. And that was not until at the end of 2008 or early 9. And the divorce didn't end until 2010. Legal battles didn't even end until just last fall. Kate, you know a little bit about my story, which I can talk about later.
Right.
So therefore, I'm finding myself still, and so therefore I'm like, yay! I know who I am, and I haven't dated in 7.5 years. I'm happily married to myself, and so it's just
You're a very hot date, by the way. Just want you to know that.
well, my dog likes me, so.
That's good. Here's what I like about your story. I think that I have enormous compassion for the fact that as you're trying to find clarity in your illness, in your situation, you are actually having to justify and try to clarify the fact that the illness existed in its first place. But the fact that on some level you see your divorce as a silver lining of sorts, I think is really positive. Brooke, for you and your experience, of which I know some about, can you talk about any silver linings you have gotten from the experience of MS? And have you translated it into strength?
Well, there have been so many experiences. I guess the most recent one is the journey that started almost 6 years ago. My daughter was born. And so it's not just an MS story. It's also an orthopedic one too. So it's like kind of it's unfortunate that a lot of us have orthopedic issues or just health issues that are not MS related that go written off to MS, which is me for years. And that's the other thing, is that, like, I think all of us are sick of explaining to even our own doctors, yes, I have this disease, still, I'm not better yet, and, you know, like, this is still an issue for me. So but then also the flip side of the coin, where you know yourself very, very well, and you've been looking at an issue for years, or you've been watching a spot on your arm forever because it's been bugging you, and you know that spot, and you're so familiar with it that anybody asks you about that spot, you're going to tell them everything there is to know about it. And doctors don't necessarily listen to what you have to say. So I had this horribly torn out hip from when my daughter was born that went undiagnosed for almost 5 years because I was limping and I was walking funny, because it also happened to coincide with a major MS attack. And it's just trying to differentiate between what is MS and what is not MS has kind of just almost defined the last 6 years of my life. And it's wonderful and frustrating all at the same time, because I've learned so much. So it's a huge silver lining for me, because I learned a lot about my own body, and even just about, like, women's health in general. And I'm just so excited to share these things with other women, and not just I'm sorry, like, there's a lot of the men on the call too, but a lot of these issues can appeal to men as well, like pelvic floor dysfunction, bladder, bowel, like, we all have it. It's not in some way, and but, like, it's kind of highlighted kind of like women's health. But I've had the benefit of learning about all these other topics because of these unfortunate injuries and illnesses that have clouded the issue. But I just kept digging. I just kept digging because I'm a little bit crazy that way. But when there's an issue that I know for a fact is not MS, I will not stop at anything until I can prove it's not MS.
Right.
And I've kind of become notorious for that.
Well, it sounds like you're a good advocate for yourself as a result of, you know, having had an issue in the past. Phil, when were you diagnosed?
January 2015.
Okay. So for you, in your experience, because you're probably the most recent, have had the least amount of time living with MS, have you found any silver linings?
No, not one. I found out that I just limp like crazy, and I thought it was just because I was just limping, like my leg or something. I've had that before, and I was like, all right. And that's when my wife says to go to this doctor and find out what the hell's wrong with you. And that's when I found out. That's when it started. But as for some silver linings, basically nothing. You know, all the medicines that I'm taking do not work. Well, obviously, because primary there's nothing. So that's why I'm hoping it's an infusion to be like a miracle, but who knows?
Right.
So. So we'll see.
Yeah, and forgive my interruption. That is something that I was hoping that Roxy could jump in on, because the medication thing is so frustrating. We're not a one size fits all when it comes to MS or the drugs or diet or anything. And I'm one of those stories now to where I've been on 5 medications, and each one has now left me with chronic forever crap, GERD and colitis and just some stuff. And so I'm staying. I've never had any fear with my MS. Never had any fear about, oh, this is a weird thing, or oh, this is so painful. But I'm scared to death to try something new. It's been too horrible this past round that I've been through. And even though the ocrelizumab or the Ocrevus, again, not a one size fits all. Some people are going to probably do fabulous. Others will not, and it's frustrating, but you're still here. There's other things that we can do to lift our spirits and to keep your state of mind in a positive state. And that's the best we can really do, in the meantime. I could do better with my diet and less drinking of my Chardonnay, but those are happy things. So anyway.
See, I've been hearing nothing but good things about this Ocrevus, but I don't know how to say it.
Ocrevus, you're right, Phil. Yeah.
So I hear nothing but good things, so I'm like, I'm just gonna go for it, and I found out that I could, so
you gotta.
I have nothing else to do. With primary, there's nothing there, so it's like, either this or eventually be in a wheelchair. So let me give it a try.
You got it. In fact, I just friended you on Facebook. I have a few other friends who are primary progressive, and they're just now starting it as well. And so, if you want like some little chat people, kind of similar in your shoes, both men and women.
Yeah, I have a few people too.
Kelly, do you have something you want to say?
Yeah,
Hi, Roxy, welcome.
Hey, Roxy, I wanted to share as far as a silver lining. Yeah. Since I've been on this journey almost 30 years, and 2018 will be 30 years, I had to start off, going with traditional ways that the doctors told me, but I was so sick all the time and I just couldn't take it anymore. I was taking 2 to 3 naps a day, aches and pains constantly. I had no quality of life. And I just said, okay, I have to stop and start investigating everything. And I had to change my relationship. So I know what you're saying, Mary, because I was in a bad relationship before and it was so taxing on my body and to the MS, and I had to change the way I ate, my thinking about this whole disease, about how I dealt with people. I had to change the diet, supplementing, exercise, alternative therapies. I was just kind of on a mission in about 2001 to figure this thing out and how I could just start healing my body instead of keep hurting it, and feeling so terrible. I was just on a mission. And so that was my silver lining, having this awakening that, okay, I have to take 100% responsibility for my health, and I'm going to find out everything possible that I can do to heal and have healthy relationships and be around supportive people. And, it just changed everything for my whole disease course.
Absolutely. I love that. And it is a journey.
I know a lot about Brookes' story and Mary's story, and Phil, I've just met you, and imagining having MS age 17, I think there's enormous potential to be really angry and really bitter. And I'm not hearing that from anybody. So I wanted to kind of end with the last question, which is, how do you guys feel your mindset has affected your healing and the way that you guys live your life?
It's made all the difference in the world, and it's made me realize there's things that I can't do that I used to do really, really well. But you know what? I was diagnosed at age 35. I'm now 51. Try something new. You don't know what you've got uncovered. There's still life to be lived, and there's ways of expressing yourself. You just never know what's there, and it's worth exploring.
Well, it was like with me. It's at first I couldn't I was able to get around without a cane, and I was like, all right. But then then I realized that I needed to have a cane all the time. So I had to get used to that and feeling like I'm stupid or something. I don't know. It just felt dumb having a cane. I'm 40 years old and I got a cane. But now I'm at the point. It's like I got a cane. I don't care. I mean, I got the it took me forever to get the this disabled handicap sticker so I could park somewhere. I was like,
Yeah.
all right. So once I got that, I was like, you know, and my friends are looking at me like, I'm like, yeah, go find yourself a spot. I'm parking right here, you know. So, but that was like, took me a little while to get used to, and I still kind of feel I can't get over the fact that I have to have this stuff. But, you know, I could deal with it better than I did in the beginning. In the beginning, I was like, oh, God, I don't want to do nothing. But
Yeah.
what are you going to do?
I have found by using my voice and putting myself out there, I can't walk without a walker. I don't need glasses. I need some kind of weird eye surgeon to make everything stop. But I can do this. And I use it. And I always tell people I'm going to rock it until the wheels fall off.
So for you, Roxy, actually talking about your experience and spreading your message has been something that in itself has been a silver lining.
You know what? That is the truth. And you know what it is? It's kind of like a, well, it's cathartic for me. But I used to help people. That was my job. I used to help seniors and disabled people get their benefits to live successfully independent. So irony was a little heavy, you know, because I didn't want to be on the other side of the fence. But this is it God giving me all the tools I needed for me.
Randy, anything you want to add, either as a question or a closing thought to our chat?
I guess the only other thing I'll say is you mentioned earlier in regards to knowledge, and I've heard it from a couple other people here, like how much knowledge has helped them, and also positivity is a big part of that. I mean, granted, it's not always easy to be positive, but the more positive that attitude can be, you know, the better it's gonna be.
What's your tip from your experience to find positivity in a time where you're not finding it on your own?
I mean, sometimes you just kind of have to take a deep breath and dig deep. I mean, things are there. It may not be the easiest thing to find, but there's always something that's there. You just gotta have to find it.
Yeah, and I would throw in also the whole idea of finding connection with people who get it, I think is enormously powerful too. Like right now, and you guys are awesome. So thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Kate.
And we will.
Thank you, Kate.
We will see you next time.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kate.
You too.
Guys.
Take care,
Bye.
guys.